bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go! Your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you for a undefeated Thursday. I will continue to call the day of the week undefeated until the Eagles lose a game, if the Eagles lose a game. So we got an undefeated Thursday for you. A couple of good guests coming your way as we get ready for the Jets and the Eagles on Thursday. Johnny Mac here, ready to rock and roll, and got out of South Philly ahead of the traffic yesterday. J Mac, you were a little concerned prior to last night's Phillies game.
Yeah,
not an issue.
Left a little bit early. I got to admit it. I wanted to avoid the traffic. That's basically how I live my life, avoiding traffic. So that's the goal for me, Jody. Not wins or losses, avoiding traffic.
I was driving into it because I was going to the game, and I got to tell you, J Mac, it was just a party the entire time. Before the game, all right, fine, the Braves scored the first run. There was a little bit of a lull, but as soon as the Phillies came back, took the lead, the Harper bomb of a home run, man, it was a pretty good party. It was traffic and or bumping into people, whatever. Well worth it for the party that was on down there.
I had my own little party as soon as I got over the Walt Whitman.
You did?
I breathed a sigh of relief.
Turn up the volume on the radio a little bit, maybe.
Exactly.
Dignified that you got to cross back to Jersey. Yeah, it was a great time last night down at Citizens Bank Park. So, yes, the Eagles, the undefeated Eagles, can fly under the radar, at least here in Philadelphia. Nationally, it's nationally, but here in Philadelphia, the Eagles can go back burner here for a little bit because the Phillies are not there yet. Got to beat the Braves today or in game number 5, but on their way to another potential NL championship run, which could mean a World Series run. Do you think the Eagles are good with that? Less observation, less under the microscope. They were almost always the number one thing being talked about here in town. You think they're all right with letting the Phillies have their moment in the sun?
Oh, I think they love it. But, I often think about that because they want as little they're always under the microscope. So I think they enjoy a little bit of a respite. But I've thought about that because they've been so good over the last 2 years. They came up just short. And I do often wonder if the Phillies actually win and they come up short again, they might be a little bit jealous.
Yeah, not as happy as they are right now. Yeah. I certainly believe that, and that could have been the case last year. Wasn't. They both got to the same exact place into the championship and came up just short. And they both look like they're heading in that direction again today. So it's pretty damn good to be a Philadelphia sports fan right about now. All right, Johnny Mac. So the time you did spend over there in South Philadelphia, you got to see both the injury report and who was actually out there on the field and how they looked. Some in limited participation, some not on the field at all. What did you make out of those who took part of yesterday's Eagles full practice? Well, first thing first, was it an intense practice? Because the coach said this week their practices are intense. That's why they're playing this good football 5-0 because of the intense practices that the Eagles go through.
I can't tell you that. I mean, we don't get to watch. We only get to watch the entire practice in training camp. So,
But your little segment, however long you're there, before they say come in and they say get out, how intense was it?
well, it's individual. It's stretching, individual work, and that's it. So basically,
You can't really
cannot
grade
gauge
intensity, huh?
intensity. But they, I think they've proven themselves that they have been prepared over a large sample size. So I don't worry about that part of it. But it was a little bit surprising that, coming out of the game, there were no obvious injuries. And we get to Wednesday, and all of a sudden, Justin Evans is back on the injury report with a knee. He played the entire game, and he wasn't able to practice. And Darius Slay, looking forward to talking to him yesterday, and he didn't practice with a knee injury. So a little bit of, I talked to Slay after the game. He seemed fine. And all of a sudden he's not practicing with a knee injury. And Marlon Tuipulotu still out with the triceps. But so those were the guys who didn't practice, and Fletcher was back in a limited fashion. Jacoby was back, as we know, from the foot injury, and he's got his 21-day window open. That's going to be interesting to see how quickly they get him back. And Cindy Brown limited with the hamstring. So I think that's a positive as far. And this could be the opportunity, if Justin Evans is not able to go, you get Cindy Brown on the field at safety against let's be honest, a nice little opponent when it comes to the passing game. Like, I got a little concern if it's next week with Miami in that passing game. But, same thing with Jacoby as well. When we talk about, well, should Nick Morrow stay on the field? A nice little game to get Jacoby Dean back on the field, because I don't think you're going to be stressed too much with the passing game. As opposed to what's coming up. So we'll see how the Eagles handle that kind of stuff. But I would say, Evans and Slay not being in practice was certainly the biggest news.
Yeah, the fact that Slay, you knew Evans was at least had been injured prior to, so it could have been something he tweaked, and give him credit for playing through. But Slay had been no issue whatsoever. And you say you talked to him after the game, and he didn't bring up any injury thing. That is a little puzzling, but again, yesterday was only Wednesday, so you got time before the Sunday game.
And Evans, he was out with a neck injury. This is a knee, so this is completely different injury. So yeah, a little bit surprised. And he played the entire game, played every snap. So maybe something swelled up afterwards. It's a tough sport, but was surprised seeing those two guys on the injury report.
And John, you and I do this almost on a weekly basis. Some weeks it's a lot more cut and dry than others. This one is another one that you can try and have some fun speculating and guess along with. Eagles have to play some roster games again this weekend because of injuries, because of guys coming up from the practice squad to get activated. You only have so many usages of that. You got a guy coming back off the injured list like Jacoby Dean. This is Howie Roseman's territory. This is what he does. These are the decisions he has to make. I'm sure he consults the coaching staff, and they certainly have input, but Howie is in charge of the roster, and he's the guy who's going to actually make the decisions between now and Sunday as to how the Eagles are going to be formulated for their squad. Yeah, I could go in order, but yeah, let's do that. The punter games. The Eagles have been playing the punter games since the season started, just elevating their punter from the practice squad every single week. It hasn't been an issue, except for the fact that their punters haven't been all that good. Either their punter that they started the season with or the one they've been going with the last couple of weeks, going against his former team, though. Maybe he's big time motivated this week. What are the Eagles going to do with their punting position, John?
Yeah, I think they're going to keep Braden Mann. There's been no evidence that they're going to continue this just elevation Michael Clay talked about. It certainly seemed to be the indication. So, yeah, they got to bring him up. They got to put him on the 53, and yeah, it's everybody carries a punter, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But
are they the only one in the league who hasn't had a punter
I would have to
on the
look. I
roster?
mean, I'm not 100% on that, but yeah, it's the first time I've ever heard of somebody doing it that way. Now somebody else might have copied it since. But that tells you, you don't have a good punter. Let's be honest. I mean, even though it's not the most valuable position, if you have a good punter, you're not going to play those games. So I don't think it's necessarily a good thing that you do it that way, because if you have a good punter, you're not worried about it and you just put them on the roster. So, but they have a very good offense. They don't punt a lot. As I said, in Los Angeles, they didn't cover one damn kick in the entire game. All touchbacks by Jake Elliott, one punt by Braden Mann. No need to cover. And, when you're only punting once a game, that's pretty good. But at some point there's going to be a game, but it might be weather related, where you're going to need a punter, and we'll really see it. But yeah, I think the Eagles have pushed it as far as they can push it, and there's nobody out there that's going to be a dramatic improvement over Braden Mann. So they got to pull the trigger and put him on the 53.
Which means somebody's got to give up a roster spot. We can speculate on that. But before we even do that, Nakobe, like you said, was out there limited as described by the Eagles. Don't know what happened after you guys were told. You've seen enough. If they do, and they don't have to make this decision till Sunday, if they do have to find a roster spot for him because he's coming off the IR. Now we're back into the conversation of, well, who goes? Is it going to be a Mario Goodrich? Is it going to be a Contavious Street? What do you think if they've got to clear a specific spot? They've got one spot open because of putting Jurgens on IR. Yeah. So they do have one, which means they would need another if you're right that they're going to elevate for going forward Braden Mann to the regular 53. They got to create a spot for Nakobe. How's that going to play out?
Yeah, I think most likely, if they want to activate him this week, I think it's probably going to be Goodrich. That would be my best guess. I don't think Street's in the conversation any longer, at least in the short term, because they needed him without Fletcher Cox and Marlin. And remember, Marlin's still injured, so they really want that depth on the defensive front. They think, and they're right, that's the strength of the team. And they really want that depth and experience in case they need it. So I don't think he's even in the conversation right now. Goodrich, he got two difficult opportunities. I mentioned yesterday. Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp. Good luck. And it worked out as well as you might expect. But yeah, and now that they have Bradley Roby, and by the way, they got to bring him up to the 53 at some point. Now they
you got two more free passes with him, right?
Yeah, yeah, and they probably have some comfort in the fact that it's you could say, well, he can leave, somebody can sign him, but he's a veteran and he's here for a reason. So I don't think he's going to play that game. So they probably do have that little bit of rope to use the 2 weeks before they bring him up. And they probably will use it. So yeah, they got some stuff, manipulation. Alberto, I mean, they traded for him, but he doesn't play. Why is he here? Rashad Penny. They need the depth, I guess, if you're worried about touches for DeAndre Swift and potential injuries. And he's got a history. He's missed 4 games every year. So I guess they like having that depth as a Super Bowl contender. But yeah, they have some decisions to make in the coming weeks. No question about it.
All right. Roster games are always fun to talk about, even though they might not swing the pendulum of power all that much in wins and losses until it does. That's why we talk about it. And because I guarantee you, as soon as they move away from Rashad Penny, you're going to see DeAndre Swift get an ankle sprain. It's almost a given when you've got a guy who's on it. Well, he never played. Why do we bother with him? Boom. As soon as you move away from him, now all of a sudden go, oh, wait, where's our depth? Oh, shoot, we just cut our depth. That's the job that Howie Roseman has, and he usually does very darn well. All right, he's McMullen on McDonald. That makes us Back and Mac Birds 365. I see it, our green room. Yes, it is a green room. I know that's what they call it in Hollywood, but it's Birds 365. So that's why we call it a green room as well. Tommy Lawler from EaglesBlitz.com, longtime Eagle reporter, is going to jump in with us. We'll talk some Eagles Jets with Tommy Lawler next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
You've got John McMullen, Jody McDonald, and our buddy from Eagles Blitz, as IGGLES Blitz.com, is very good Eagles website where he posts about the Eagles all week long, pre and post the game and the like. Tommy Lawler jumps in with us here on Birds 365. All right, TL, this is where I want to go with you first. Back it up 52 weeks. Last year at this time, the Philadelphia Eagles were 5-0. This year they are 5-0 and are favored pretty heavily to go to 6-0 against the Jets on Aaron Rodgers this week. How do you compare this year's team to last year's team as to this moment in time when both teams were undefeated early into the season?
Well, last year nobody expected 5-0. We thought that was going to be a good team, but I don't think we thought they were going to go 14-3 and necessarily to the Super Bowl, and because they were coming off a 9-8 season. And before that, obviously, they had the disaster of 2020. This year, they're 5-0. And so last year, while the Eagles, we all thought they were going to be good as they made They had built that roster, and then the acquiring Chauncey Gardner-Johnson right there in early September, all of a sudden people started saying that could be a Super Bowl team. But I still don't think people within the NFL were shooting for the Eagles. This year, the Eagles are a marked team, right? Everybody wants to beat the Eagles. And we saw that the Patriots spent all off season coming up with a game plan to slow down Jalen Hurts. That wasn't happening last year, and then people, we saw Minnesota using creative defenses to slow down Jalen Hurts again. That wasn't happening last year. So last year's team was able to win games and there was no pressure. This year, there's a lot of pressure. Teams are throwing everything they have at the Eagles. And the fact that they've been able to find different ways to win without having their A game consistently shows you that the team has grown. Because last year, when they didn't have their A game against Washington, they lost in the regular season. And that was to Taylor Heineke. This team has been able to figure out the answer for whatever's come their way so far.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference, Tommy, is what you just said. Last year, people came in and said, all right, Jalen Hurts has got to beat us throwing the football. This year, it's the exact opposite. They want to limit the off-schedule stuff. They want to limit the quarterback run game, and they want somebody else to beat them. And the Eagles been able to find a way. It's pretty impressive. That's what I'm most impressed about. They, Minnesota, you mentioned that they're playing the light boxes, and they're like, all right, we're just going to run it down your throat. They can throw the ball. They can do that. They can beat you in so many ways. It's pretty impressive offensively, except asterisk, the red zone. What's going on in the red zone? 20, I believe, 7th in the league. They're top 10 in everything, Tommy, except red zone offense. They go from 20 to 20. They got 400 plus yards every week, and then they bog down. But they have Jake Elliott. Overall, though, you would think with Miami coming up, Buffalo, San Francisco, etc., they're going to have to score touchdowns at some point.
So just where we talked about how last year, the Eagles did certain things, the team studied them in the offseason, they built plans, the Eagles have overcome that. It feels like people really studied what the Eagles did in the red zone last year and have come up with ways to deal with that. They're not caught by surprise. Think how often Jalen Hurts was just such a dynamic force in the red zone last year, running untouched for touchdowns.
Yeah.
This year, people are focusing on him, and that's taken that element away. Obviously, they haven't thrown the ball a lot to Dallas Goedert this year until last week, period. Dallas Goedert should be a valuable red zone weapon. Tight end, that's where tight ends were made to thrive. And so I think part of it's on the execution by the players. You heard Jason Kelce talk the other day about how frustrated he is with the lack of execution and the red zone struggles. I think part of it's on Brian Johnson and trying to get a feel for what works. And unfortunately for Brian, he's stepping in where, again, defenses have studied what happened last year, and he's got to overcome what defenses are throwing at him, what they've taken away. So it'll take a little bit of time. And it also feels like a lot of red zone possessions are starting at the 10 or 9 yard line, and you got to go to full way. If the Eagles were starting first and goal at the 3 and getting stuff, that'd feel a little worse. But when you're starting at the 9 or 10, you got to go the full distance. It does make it harder. And it's part of it's on the players and part of it's on the coaches.
All right, Tommy, we could get really specific and get down to the nitty and the gritty and the details. I just want a wide sweeping evaluation from you. If we were to go either pass, fail, thumbs up or thumbs down for the Eagles' 2 new coordinators, I would say you got to go thumbs up on both at this stage. They're a coordinator of a 5-0 team. How can you go thumbs down? It just would not be fair as far as I'm concerned. But of the two, defense, offense, which coordinator has impressed you more taking over for a pretty damn successful predecessor?
Well, I'll say Sean Desai, simply because he's had a bigger challenge with replacing so many parts on the defense. Right now, the offense is the better unit, right? So give Brian Johnson credit for that. But he also was there last year. He inherited a lot of pieces that were there last year. We're talking about replacing the right guard and the number 4 wide receiver. So, and then I guess a running back. So the rest of it was just like what was there last year. Sean Desai has new linebackers, new safeties, He's got some new faces on the defensive line, and he's had to try to figure some things out. He's also had to deal with injuries. It feels like the secondary, they're taking turns getting hurt for a week. And I know that's the one place you really want continuity. You can plug and play the guys on the defensive line because you're going to get the quarterback, you're attacking a run in a certain gap. On the secondary, you've got to see the same thing that the guy beside you sees, so that you don't jump a route and that he knows which receiver is going to be covered. And so the fact that they've had so many guys coming in and out, and they've managed to play so well last week against the Rams is impressive. You saw earlier in the year when the secondary, again, still new, still learning. There were times, especially when Washington threw some of the bunch sets at them, that the Eagles just looked confused. And then part of that was I thought Terrell Edmonds just really struggled in that game. Justin Evans plays on Sunday in place of him, and the Eagles just look crisper. There would be bunch sets where you would see the three Rams run their route, and you would see James Bradbury jump on his guy. You'd see Reed Blankenship jump on his guy, and you'd see the slot corner jump on his guy, and they do it quickly and fluidly. And getting Bradbury back to the outside, I think, was a big help. He's more comfortable there. And then Blankenship is healthy, and he's playing well. And in the slot corner, it's a little bit of a work in progress. But I think we saw good things from Bradley Roby. I thought Eli Ricks looked pretty good. And I thought even Mario Goodrich was better as the game went on. Early on, he was really struggling, but he got a little bit more comfortable as the game went on.
Yeah, I wonder about the inside of the Eagles, straight up the middle. I still am concerned about that, Tommy. As you mentioned, you think about what's going on in the slot since Avonte Maddox went down against Minnesota. Mario Goodrich finishes that game. Then the next week in Tampa Bay, they piecemeal it between Bradbury and Sidney Brown. Then Sidney Brown gets hurt. Next week against Washington, it's pretty much Bradbury who's an outside corner, as you mentioned. Then we're like, we got to get Bradbury back to the outside. And it's back to Goodrich and Eli Ricks. And Cooper Kupp is really, really beaten both pretty badly. And Slay sort of was the one who said, look, we gotta switch this up. They even used Slay in there for a couple snaps, and then it was Roby. That's what's going on in the slot. So in one hand, I'm like, that's pretty impressive to persevere through that and get to 5-0, especially against guys like Cooper Kupp. And going back to where it started with Jefferson, that's pretty impressive. On the other hand, I say to myself, you know what? Matthew Stafford's getting the football out in 2.2 seconds. Kirk Cousins getting it out in 2.4. He usually holds on to the football. This defensive front is masking a lot of deficiencies, Tommy, on the back end in the middle of that defense. You think that's fair or unfair?
I think it's fair. Absolutely. You know, and that's one of the reasons that the defensive line isn't putting up gaudy sack numbers, right? Quarterbacks are getting the ball out very quickly. And so the Eagles defensive backs only have to cover for a certain amount of time. That said, when we have seen teams throw down the field, Reed Blankenship has tended to be the deep safety on a lot of those plays, and he's been in position to break up a pass. He almost picked off a pass against Washington. So they've done well when teams have gone really deep. When teams have just tried to throw more of the intermediate and, you know, the like a deep dig route and things of that nature, that's where they need 7-step drops and they need good protection. We haven't seen a lot of that. You know, when they've thrown real vertical balls, the Eagles have been able to handle that. But against a team that we haven't seen anybody really throw the ball 15 to 20 yards down the field consistently against them. So that will be a test. The Rams tried some of that with shots to Cooper Kupp on 20 and 30-yard routes.
Yeah, and he was open, but that's my point, Tommy.
But that's the design of the defense is you tell your defensive back to play good leverage and stay inside him and force the ball to be thrown over the shoulder to the perfect spot. And if you watch, I was just rewatching the game last night.
Yeah,
Josh Sweat is right in Stafford's face, so Stafford throws the ball out of bounds. You can't cover everybody. This is not the 85 Bears. And even the 85 Bears, they went up against one team that had an elite passing attack, and the Dolphins won 38-24. when an offense is good at throwing the football, you're not going to shut them down unless you've got a freak defense that covers at a high level. And there's just not a lot of those out there. And certainly the Eagles are not that kind of defense.
Yeah.
Tommy, I need to ask you about the guy who has been the star and the stud. Really difficult to believe. Well, maybe not.
John McMullen?
Of the kind of season that they had last year, all of a sudden a rookie comes in and he's the star of the defensive line that got 70 sacks last year. Yeah, that's exactly what it has been so far with what Jalen Carter's done in the middle. Another dominant performance again last week, even though the Rams did as best they could to limit him by getting the ball the hell out of Stafford's hand as quickly as they did. He played 71% of the snaps this past week. Part of that out of necessity because Fletcher was out of the lineup. Marlon Tuipulotu was out of the lineup. But again, looked great on almost every single snap he played. You going to play him less snaps this week because Fletcher's back? Or do you just keep building up his amount? Aaron Donald's on the field, and I'm not calling him Aaron Donald. I'm not getting carried away, but the best defensive tackles in the league do play basically every snap. That they're not part of a rotational base. All right, they get one every 20 plays. It's just give them a quick breath, boom, get them back in there. Are we talking about getting into that territory for Jalen Carter very soon?
I would still rotate him. And the simple fact is when he was at Georgia, he wasn't playing a ton of snaps at Georgia. I mean, they had such huge leads that he probably wasn't playing much in the fourth quarter of games. So this is not a guy who's used to playing 55 to 60 snaps a game. And again, the Eagles, everything they do this year has to be predicated on some level of January and February. And Jalen Carter dominating in October is nice. We need Jalen Carter in January and February. So let's treat him. Listen, baseball analogy, it's a starting pitcher. Why have him pitch 8 innings now? Let's have him pitch 6, and hopefully by the time he gets to October, that arm will still be fresh for October. And so, let's not wear him out during the regular season, which is important, but this team has bigger aspirations, and you need a fresh, healthy Jalen Carter for a Super Bowl run. And as we know, rookies, sometimes they're not used to playing 17 games. In college, most they played is 15, and again, with a couple of those coming against cupcakes and then with other blowouts, they're just not used to playing that many snaps. So let's not wear him out.
Yeah, I think that's the strength of the Eagles. Jody's right. I mean, Donald's played, I'm just looking it up, 271 snaps, Carter 164. Trying to look at other guys. Daron Payne, 280. Derek Brown, 272. When you get to those big numbers, Jonathan Allen, St. Washington, 284. Harrison Phillips, 266. They don't have any depth. They don't have depth. That's why those guys are out there. The Eagles have this extraordinary depth. I think that's the whole key to their defense. I don't want to understate it because, if those guys are gassed in a close game in the fourth quarter, but they got to be out there. That was like Fletcher early in his career where we kept asking him, are you going to keep playing Fletcher these many reps? Well, they'd be in close games, and I said we can't take him off the field.
Right.
And I think the strength of the Eagles right now on defense, unquestionably, is that front, and it's not only the talent. The top end talent is phenomenal, but the reserves are good and they're capable. And if you got it, use it. And the Eagles, I think, are going about it the right way. Are they ever going to be in a close game where they're in a sense of urgency? Well, they already have been in Washington.
Washington was close. Right. They go to overtime. And they get any closer than that, John.
And they were on the field. And if that happens again, they'll be on the field. But in games where they have a little bit of breathing room, I think it's really smart to rotate those guys and limit their reps. We've seen they've extended Brandon Graham's career, and they're doing the same with Fletcher now. Fletcher's playing great before he got hurt. We were talking about the back end. I think they have to do it that way because they have to dominate up front, where I think you start to see some of the weaknesses in the middle of the field. That would be my take on it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not the ultimate nightmare for me, I don't know if you guys remember this, back in 2005, the Eagles played Seattle on a Monday night game. And there was a play where Matt Hasselbeck dropped back, and I swear he held the ball for 12 seconds.
Was that the 40 to whatever game?
It was a bad blowout, yeah. And there was a game where he just had nobody near him, and he just stood in the pocket.
Yeah.
Stood, counted, waited. Finally, somebody came up and he hit him for a touchdown. And it literally was embarrassing because, the Eagles, the one thing, even when they're a cruddy team, they can get to the quarterback. They affect the quarterback. This team has played defense, and watching that team not be able to get within 10 feet of Matt Hasselbeck, that was a nightmare. So, yeah, you've got to be able to get pressure, and if this defense can't get pressure, then the back seven is definitely going to be vulnerable. But luckily, they've built such an array of rushers that they have flexibility. They can speed rush, they can power rush. They have guys coming to the inside. They can use Josh Sweat on stunts. Brandon Graham was lining up a defensive tackle against the Rams on some plays.
Yeah,
they were being, and that's one thing. Talking about Desai, he's been really creative with his personnel and moving them around. We've seen Fletcher Cox line up at defensive end, and so he's let them put them in different spots, and it just gives the blocker. If you go from blocking Hassan Reddick at 240 pounds to Cox at 310 pounds, that's two different players, right? So let's throw different things at these blockers and see if you can catch them off guard and get to the quarterback. So Sean Desai's been creative, and this front line has been fantastic.
All right, let's add to Jonathan Desai's creativity and tinkering with the defense that Jonathan Gannon ran last year, though similar, not exactly the same. If I set the over-under sacks for Nicholas Morrow this week at 1.5, seeing as he's got a 3-sack game under his belt this year, I think that's a fair number. If you're going under, tell me why Nicholas Morrow won't get a sack, 2 sacks this week against the Jets.
I'm going way under before Tommy jumps in. But go ahead.
I'm going to go under because I think the game's going to get so out of hand so fast that he probably won't even play the last 3 quarters. They'll put the backups in. So that's
backups. They don't have backups. They got 3 linebackers on it. Quality time for Christian Ellis. Is that what we're talking about?
No, so joking aside, I think that you're not going to need to blitz Zach Wilson. That Jets offensive line is really banged up. They just lost their right tackle. They've got a rookie starting at right guard who played center in college. The left tackles had all kinds of issues. So I think that the front four is going to get pressure on their own. So I don't expect Nick Morrow to have to blitz in this game. So
can't get any sacks if you don't blitz.
Listen,
a good point there, Tommy.
Well, they'll let him green dog. Where if the running back stays in and blocks, then he can attack up the field. And his sacks have come when Reddick or Carter or somebody flushed the quarterback, and he was there to clean it up.
Yeah, exactly. This is not Lawrence Taylor coming around the edge, people.
No, he's so much better than Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't. Those were not conventional. There were 2, I believe. There were 2 delayed blitzes, and yeah, I mean, he's just cleaning up stuff at the front, and that's why.
But he's there. He's making.
Yeah, he's playing great. He deserves credit. He's playing great. He's making plays, and that brings me to the question, Tommy. I think we all say, well, this can't continue. We've seen enough of Nick Morrow to say he's not Fred Warner. But he's last week was yesterday, Pro Football Focus they grade and they tweak and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he's number 2 now. He's number 2 in the NFL. He's not Fred Warner, though. And I think, everybody's waiting for the shoe to drop. I think the Eagles, to be honest, are waiting for the shoe to drop because they want to get Nakobe back in the lineup. But the shoe hasn't dropped. And if Nakobe's ready and he's back at practice, what does Tommy Lawler do? Do you just go back to Nakobe Dean? Do you move out Zach Cunningham and play them both? What do you do?
Are we allowed to trade for Fred Warner? Is that one of the options? Yeah, so one of the things I'm curious about, so Nakobe last year played more of the weak side linebacker role, obviously
Yeah.
with TJ Edwards as middle linebacker. Well, Morrow right now has been the guy with the green dot. He's been the middle linebacker. I wonder if you could put Nakobe Dean back into the weak side spot and have him play in place of Zach Cunningham. And then you'd have Dean and Morrow on the field together, who are the more athletic
Well,
of the
you could certainly
linebackers.
do that. If they do that, I think though Nakobe's got the green dot. They don't want to move Nakobe off the green dot. They think he's the leader of their defense. They think he's really smart.
And that's fine.
And by the way, Nick Morrow has extensive experience at both as well. So he's
Right.
got extensive experience.
He's
at
more
weak side.
comfortable as a weak side linebacker.
Yeah.
He talks about that last year in Chicago. They had him play in weak side, or they had him play in middle linebacker. When they traded Roquan Smith, they moved him to the.
Yeah.
They had him starting at the weak side, and they moved him into the middle.
Yep.
He was more comfortable in the weak side, where he's played in space a little bit. So I would consider trying to get those two. Like Zach Cunningham has been a good run defender. He tackles, he can shed blocks. He's big and strong and physical, but he struggles in coverage, right? And Dean and Morrow are going to be your best cover linebackers. They both tackle well, and they're both solid athletes.
Well, Tommy, let me interject. This week, you got the Jets. You got to be worried about the run game, not the pass game.
And that's why I wondered if they would hold Nakobe another week and just leave these guys in, because they're you want Zach Cunningham on the field for this game, I think, because he is a run defender. And with Morrow, if you funnel plays to the inside, he's a solid tackler. So I don't know if you want to bring Nakobe in and put the pressure of him having to deal with Hall, who's an explosive runner. And if you're just a half a second late, he can be out down the field for a 50-yard gain. So I didn't know if they want to put Nakobe on the field for that as your first game. But then again, I think, what is it, Miami the week after? So maybe you want to go ahead and get him, because that game's going to be even worse. So maybe you do go ahead and put Nakobe in this game. And maybe you play him in Cunningham. I don't know. They've got options. And listen, that's something we didn't think we'd say back in August, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't think we thought the option would be, okay, so there's Dean, and who else has a pulse?
If Nakobe's up this week, options. And we don't know that Nakobe's going to be up yet this week, but if he is, I don't see him playing Morrow and Nakobe together for one very big reason, big being the operative word there. Neither one of them is. As John pointed out, right now the number one weapon the Jets have is Breece Hall running the football. So if you're going to put your best run defensive linebacker unit out there, I think you have to include Cunningham. But I just do want to note that for those who doubted Nakobe Dean, and Nakobe played one game and he got 7 tackles. He played well before he went down. So the jury is still out on him, but there are people that have been questioning Nakobe since he was drafted because of his size. He's too small to play linebacker in the national phase of safety. Morrow is smaller. Nakobe is bigger than Morrow, and we're seeing him. Where does Morrow rank with the PFF linebackers in the league, John, right now?
Number 2.
Number 2. Oh, so he's the second ranked linebacker in the league. At what size? If he's 215, it's got to be because he's got rocks in his pockets these days, right?
They list him again. They list him at 225.
Yeah, stop it.
Now,
Stop
honestly, if you're asking me who's slightly bigger, they're both undersized. I would say Nick is slightly bigger. He's slightly taller. Now they list Nakobe at 231, which is absurd.
Ridiculous.
I would say, now you're right. Nick Morrow played safety in college. He was a safety in college, and he made the shift. He played at that football factory, Greenville University. But he was a safety in college, and he made the transition. I would say he's slightly bigger. Nakobe is small, but they're both small linebackers.
Right. And I think both of them are outstanding linebackers. Got a chance to play linebacker. I just wouldn't put them out there together. Now you're tempting fate. Now you're saying, yeah, we're just going to go completely on these guys' skill sets and throw size and
Zach Cunningham's a linebacker. Zach looks like
no question.
He looks like a linebacker.
Yeah. And that's part of it. But the game has changed. It's more about spacing now, and that's why you have these lighter bodies playing linebacker all over the league, not just here in Philadelphia.
And let's be clear, you couldn't do this without Jordan Davis in front of him.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So
yes,
the fact
exactly.
you got that 320-pound man up there who's able to either eat blocks or control gaps or just clog that middle, that keeps blockers from getting to them consistently. And so it allows them to read and get to the football. So, if they had 295-pound defensive tackles, then you'd probably need 240-pound linebackers,
Yeah.
But with Davis there, and then Cox and Carter and the other big guys they have that really clog up the middle, that allows them to play smaller linebackers and have more speed on the field. So it really, this
Jordan
is gonna be
Davis, man, I'm going to take a victory lap on that because I was talking to Jody back when they drafted him. I said, it's not going to show up on the stat sheet. It might be too esoteric, but you can't move this guy. And he just takes up 2 blockers all the time. And you think about the safety with Nicholas Morrow as well. You talk about all the sacks and their run defense is so much improved. That's directly tied to the improvement of Jordan Davis from year 1 to year 2. You just can't move that guy. And when you got a guy you can't move, Vita Vea in Tampa, they've had that great run defense right up until they played the Eagles. But when you got that guy you can't move and you got to try to dislodge, it makes it really difficult to run the football. So I go back to the front. I keep going back to the front. It's an amazing group. It really is.
Yeah.
It was, but who was it? Bucky Brooks, right, Jody?
Number 1 group of any unit, any team, National Football League.
Yeah.
Eagles defensive line over anybody's defensive line, offensive line, quarterbacks, wide receivers, runner. Any group, Eagles defensive line, number 1 in the National Football League.
And I agree with him. It is so deep and so dominant. I think that, I go back. I have a lot of concerns with the up the middle defense in the seam. But, you mentioned Miami. I asked Jody, so I'll ask you, Tommy. The Jets, let's be honest. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's not it's Zach Wilson. You're not going to be fearful in the passing game this week, even though I love Garrett Wilson. I think he'd be a star if he had a quarterback. Is this the week Justin Evans showed up on the injury report out of nowhere? He played the entire game in Los Angeles. He was out of practice with a knee injury, wasn't the neck, so it's a new injury. We know his injury history in general, so he's back on the injury list. Is this the week we can get Sidney Brown in at safety and say, you don't have to worry about being gashed. You can sort of learn on the job. I don't think you could do that against Miami, but maybe you get him his feet wet. Is this the week?
I hope so, because I was really discouraged when I saw Terrell Edmonds play in Washington in that game. I just thought he really struggled and was slow, didn't cover well, didn't tackle well. And the one big hit he got is when he hit the quarterback out of bounds. So what if Justin Evans, if he can't play, and we're still early, not early, I guess we still have time we'll see how that goes. But if Evans can't play, I'd rather have Brown. I'd rather live with a rookie mistake than to have a veteran who's just playing bad football. And maybe I'm being overly harsh on one game, but a veteran just shouldn't play like that. That really bugged me. So I'd rather have the rookie out there. And we know one thing, he's going to bring some juice to the defense. He's going to fly around. He's going to be physical. He's going to hit. And he showed against Tampa he can make some plays. He's got talent, right? So I'd want to get that guy out there. That would be my hope. We'll see what Sean Desai thinks.
All right, John, just one note on your boy, Jordan Davis. You know who's making him look bad? Maybe worse than anyone else in the National Football League? His teammate, who is capable of actually putting up the stats. He actually gets the stat. He takes 2 blockers and still gets to the quarterback and or makes the tackle. That's the guy who's making, and I think Jordan Davis is playing great, but the guy's making him look bad.
Well, I said
right next to him.
Look, I said from day one when he got drafted, it might be too esoteric for the fan base because it's not going to be. And Jalen Carter's like bang in your face. Yeah, he's the Aaron Donald type defensive tackle. If this were a 4-man front, he'd be the under tackle. He'd be the 3 technique, and Jordan would be the nose tackle, the shade. If you go the old Jim Schwartz, and one guy's responsible for doing the dirty work, and the other guy's responsible for, showing up in the box score. And that's everybody's got their role. And
Absolutely.
Jordan does his role very, very well this season.
All right, Tommy, want to run this one by? I give credit to our buddy Brendan Lee Gouton, who put these stats out yesterday. Trips into the red zone. We talked earlier about that's been one of the few spots that the Eagles at 5-0 have actually been worse this year than they were last year. 11 trips into the red zone where DeAndre Swift has been the guy in the backfield for the Eagles. Eagles have scored 6 touchdowns and settled for 5 field goals. When Kenny Gainwell has been the guy in the backfield for those red zone trips, the Eagles in 8 tries have one touchdown, 4 field goals, turned it over on downs once, and ran out the clock twice. So Kenny Gainwell, when he's been in the red zone as the number 1 back, is 1 of 8 scoring touchdowns. DeAndre Swift is 6 of 11 scoring touchdowns. That's a pretty big disparity. John told me all year at training camp leading up to, they trust Kenny Gainwell. He's going to be the high leverage back. He's going to be the guy in the big spot. He has been, and he has not been producing. When Swift had been given a chance, Gainwell out of the lineup, came up big. Did they give it up this week and just leave DeAndre Swift in there when they get inside the red zone to try and fix some of those issues?
It sounds like they sure should. Or mix in Boston Scott, do something. But Gainwell has worked well in that role in the past, and who knows why it's not working. Again, maybe with defense is really adjusting to what to focus on Jalen Hurts. That has taken away some of Gainwell's effectiveness for some reason. I don't know. But the bottom line is the stats don't lie. And he's obviously not getting the job done. So the Eagles ought to do something because they need to listen. Touchdowns versus field goals just makes all the difference in the world. The Eagles dominated that game in Los Angeles, and yet with 4.5 minutes left, it was a 6-point game. If they just have 1 touchdown instead of a field goal, then that's a 2-possession game in the third quarter, and the Eagles can breathe a little bit. And that makes a huge difference. That puts more pressure on the Rams. Maybe all of a sudden you see Stafford taking chances and throwing balls up that the Eagles can attack. So scoring touchdowns is critical, and the Eagles have got to do a better job of that, whether it's personnel, coaching, execution, something. But I hadn't seen that, so that's interesting. That's interesting.
I'll leave it here with you, Tommy. At Lawler NFL, make sure you follow Tommy on X, Twitter, eaglesblitz.com. I'm going to leave you with a conspiracy theory. Why not? Love a good conspiracy theory. I told Jason Kelce was pretty fired up at one point due to the red zone difficulties, even putting his hands on Jeff Stoutland a little bit. And I told Jody yesterday, he talked after the game, but he didn't want to get into it. I said he wanted to create content for New Heights, his podcast. And sure enough, he talked about it. And it was the red zone issues, the communication issues. But the larger point, I joke about the conspiracy theory. The larger point is we've seen it with A.J. Brown. We've seen it now with Jason Kelce. To a little bit in the past with somebody like Dallas Goedert, Darius Slay. Is it a good thing that they're so emotional? The head coach is emotional, or is it a bad thing?
There's not a blanket answer for that, right? You want your team and your coaches to be genuine. So if they're emotional people and they're emotional on the sidelines, that's okay. It just can't be fake emotion. If you remember years ago when Marty Mornhinweg was the coach in Detroit, he got mad one day in practice and went and got on his motorcycle and drove off to show his anger at his team. It was completely staged because why would his motorcycle be by the end zone during a football practice? So the team just looked at him and said, "Oh, dude, you got to be kidding me with that stunt." So he was an awful head coach. I just happened the other day to watch a clips of back in 1994. The Eagles played San Francisco, 140-8. Steve Young got benched in that game and was furious at George Seifert for benching him and screamed at him just the most ungodly things, trying to get George Seifert to fight him. And George ignored him the whole time. And Steve Young's teammates all of a sudden kind of saw him in a different light because he'd always been kind of not a super emotional guy.
Yeah.
And he said him being emotional, his teammates kind of got fired up by that. And as you know, they went on to win the Super Bowl that year. So emotion can be a good thing if it's genuine and it's under control. And the Eagles seem to be able to, Sirianni talks about being from an Italian family. You can yell at each other and still love each other, and that's okay. It seems to be okay. Now, listen, we're talking about athletes, and these guys have egos the size of Montana. So you don't know if somebody's going to get a little out of hand with that. Something's going to go wrong. So it is something to watch, that's for sure.
All right, last thing for you, Tommy. We'll just have some fun with this. I'm not really putting you to the test, but I am. Nick Sirianni, with his win last week, improved to the 4th best coaching record in the history of the National Football League with 2 years of March. He's number 4 in the history of the National Football League as far as winning percentages go, over 700. Who are the 3 guys ahead of him?
So one of them's got to be John Madden.
That would be correct. Very good.
Number
2.
George Allen.
He's ahead of George Allen, Sirianni.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Yeah.
Bill Walsh.
Not Walsh.
Not Walsh.
Nope.
Wow. I know Madden had a short career. Oh, Tony Dungy?
Mm-mm.
No. Wow. I don't know who are the other 2.
One is
Lombardi.
Is Lombardi, yeah, because most people consider him the greatest.
Yeah.
George Hallis.
No. A guy I never heard of before today. I looked him up and saw Guy Chamberlain. From the 20s, the 1920s, somewhere, I believe it or not.
Pottsville Maroons.
He played one season for the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets before he became a coach.
Okay. Hey, let me ask you, do you have the numbers there, Jody? Who's got the highest winning percentage?
Guy Chamberlain at 760 something.
Now think about this, guys. Why I wanted to hear the number. After the 2-5 start, Nick Sirianni is 26-6. That is 8-13.
Yeah, that would can't go back and wipe those out. But you're right. Since then, he's been that good. Chamberlain won, Madden 759, Lombardi 738. Right now, Sirianni's at 718. 4th best coaching record in the history of the National Football League. And we don't talk about it. We really should. He's doing a hell of a job.
I'm glad you said that because I don't think a lot of Eagles fans understand what this run is. It is unbelievable.
Right.
Yeah.
Hurts is what, 22-1 in his last
22-1
starts?
22-1.
That's freaky.
And they'll see if they can add a little percentage on each this weekend against the Jets. Tommy, great stuff. Always a pleasure when you come on. We love having you. We will certainly be calling you back again in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was great talking to you, fellas.
Our pleasure.
Appreciate
Check out his website, Eagles, IGGLES, eaglesblitz.com. Tommy makes a couple of very good Eagle posts each and every single week. All right, McMullen and McDonald posting them for you every day here on Birds 365. We'll come back. I'll give you another pretty good stat. I'm stealing stats all over the place. BLG put up a good one yesterday. Ruben Frank put up a good one today. 4th. He's 4th. Nick Sirianni has got
I'm more focused on that 8-13 since the Flower speech.
Yeah, see that I can't do that. You do that. I don't think you can. Other than taking away, I was when he started.
Well, no, because I'm not taking away from those guys. I'm trying to point out, as I said to Tommy, I do not think people understand the run they're on. Well, not everybody. Many people do, but a lot of people do not. This shit doesn't happen in this league. It doesn't happen in this league. And that's why I bring it up. 2-5, they got off to a terrible start.
Yeah, even adding 2-5, acknowledging it was a 2-5 start, and he's still the 4th best coach in the history of the National Football League to this point. Pretty damn impressive. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We'll come back with more Birds 365. Stay right there.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
You got your Mac guys here on Birds 365. John McMullen, Jody McDonald. We got another hour and change. Well, no, not in change, an hour to play. Jeff Mosher from InsideTheBirds.com, both website and podcast, is going to jump in about 15 minutes from now. Haven't talked to Mosher in a couple weeks. Looking forward to that. All right, John, I was going to ask this of Tommy. We ran out of time. I took us off on a historical coaching record tangent. I think it's worth noting, but didn't get to this question, so I'm going to put it to you instead. Under over, I just looked it up on my sports wagering website. Yards receiving this weekend for Devontae Smith is 52.5.
Over.
Yeah, so do I. I think it's an easy over.
Yeah.
And here's my question. Week 1, Dallas Goedert had 1 target and no receptions. And it was pretty damn obvious that the Eagles were going to come out and throw him the football. Now, they did. It wasn't very effective. He had 6 catches, which is a big number for Dallas on a given week, but for only 22 yards, which kind of baffled me. But they did. They force-fed him the football. I think it was a concerted effort to get him the football, and they did. A.J. Brown has a little bit of a dust-up on the sidelines with his quarterback, which the coach tried to pretend he didn't even see when he was actually part of it, and they caught it on video, and he had to come back. Oh yeah, okay. And the next week they throw the ball to AJ Brown 12 times. I think he was targeted 12 times.
Yeah.
Something like
Well, AJ was right away, even in that game. I think he got the next. They went right to him after the dust up.
They don't need downtime to
Yeah.
figure out. We got to give him the ball.
Yeah.
Boom, right away. And this past Devontae Smith was a non-factor in the game. Not that it shut the Eagles offense down all that much because Goddard and Brown were that good. But I'm guessing that at least a mention has been made somewhere between the wide receiver and his quarterback, the wide receiver and his offensive coordinator. It maybe not as outwardly as AJ Brown does, but my guess is there's going to be some kind of communication to say, hey, my turn to eat this week. I think it's going to. What does that tell you about the Philadelphia Eagles? That when they when they specifically decide we need to get this guy the ball that much more often, that they can just go ahead and do it. What's it tell you about the Eagles?
They're really good. Most things. Yeah. I mean, and you go back to last year in Detroit, week 1, Devontae didn't catch one pass. And right the next week, I think he got the first 2 plays the next week and he caught a bunch of passes. So it's happened in the past as well. Yeah, it's, I think I said it earlier this week. Coaches always say it's a good problem to have, but after good, the word problem is still in
there.
that phrase.
Still part of it, yes.
And I talk about it all the time when people want Bijan Robinson or DeAndre Hopkins or whomever else we talked about in the offseason. Ain't enough footballs right now to go around. You finally got DeAndre Swift involved with the passing game. People have been talking about that forever. Finally got that involved in the mix. Yeah, it's not easy to keep everybody happy every week. But the good thing is, if you win, it's hard to complain. It's hard to complain if you keep winning. And we just talked about the winning and the run they're on. So I don't think anybody wants to be that guy when you're winning. When you're losing, it's easy. But I don't think anybody wants to be seen as so selfish that they're complaining when you're 5-0. So I think that helps mitigate it. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure for Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni and Kevin Petula to get everybody involved, and it's hard to get everybody involved every week.
John, no, you haven't had access to certain coaches. Love to get a quote from a guy. Sirianni can certainly speak to it because he's the head coach, but the guy you'd want to talk to would be, of course, Jeff Stoutland. How have the Eagles graded out Sua Opeta since he took over and filled in for Cam Jurgens?
I mean, it says a lot that he took over for Cam Jurgens. So I do think that he caught their eye in training camp as a potentially improved player. But somebody said on another show, somebody said, Sua handled Aaron Donald. I mean, the Eagles aren't dumb. They game plan the whole thing around Aaron. Everything was slid to Aaron Donald. He got a lot of help, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
right? Just good coaching.
It's nothing against Sua. I mean, but yeah, if you left him on an island, he would not have had a good game. So I think they're very happy with him and how he handled himself, specifically coming in game the week before against Washington. They were really happy with him because, last year, if you think about how they did it, it was Andre Dillard was the left side backup, even moved in the left guard there, finally got it in year 4. And Jack Driscoll was the right backup, the right side.
Is Jack Driscoll still on the team? I'm sorry, we don't approach his name much. I haven't needed to, but
yeah,
you're right.
Well, that surprised me.
He was the guy playing last year, and now he's in witness protection.
Yeah, I thought when they had a week to prepare, I thought maybe they'd go to Jack. So I think that says a lot about Sua. And they said right away it was going to be Sua.
Yeah,
they didn't play games.
Which Nick loves to play, that
Yeah.
competitive advantage, don't tell anybody anything game.
So I think that tells you all you need to know, that they're happy with him because they had other options. And Tyler Steen, rookie 3rd-round pick that they drafted to be the long-term answer at right guard because obviously Cam is eventually going to move to center. They have him as well. And they're like, nope, it's Sua. So I think that more than anything else tells you that they're very, very happy with him.
And he's played very well. And you made a good point because, I did see a couple. Oh, he completely shut down Aaron Donald. No, the Eagles' offensive line shut down Aaron Donald. He was part of it and probably a big part of it. But if you think they left him on an island mano a mano against Aaron Donald,
and by the way,
that did not happen. You gotta, you don't even need to go to the All 22. You could have picked that up off your TV on Sunday. That the Eagles handled it quite wisely by giving him help against the best defensive tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, and I talked to Nick about this yesterday. For people that were watching the press conference, they might have heard it. Because Quinnen Williams is a heck of a player this week, and he's not nobody's Aaron Donald, but he's a heck of a player. He's in the conversation as being, the best defensive tackle outside of Aaron. And Nick mentioned, we can't do that this week because the Rams don't have anybody else. So the Eagles were smart and they slid and they also chipped. Well, they can't really do that against the Jets because the Jets have other good defensive players.
Oh,
they have
linebackers, unlike the Rams linebackers.
Oh,
what were the numbers you gave us yesterday on the Ram linebackers?
Oh man, I've never seen such a low grade on the poor Rosenboom kid, but the Jets have good players all over the place on defense. They got good corners. I don't know if Reed is healthy, but they got good linebackers. They got good safeties. They got good defensive line. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to slide everything to Quinnen Williams because somebody else can hurt you. But the Rams didn't have that. So the Eagles took advantage of it, and the coaching staff deserves credit for it. But so does Sua. Don't get me wrong. But, he got a lot of help. He should have gotten a lot of help. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, that was just good coaching by the Eagles, and we see it time and time again. Anybody who at any time comes through Stoutland University seems to overachieve expectations. He's better than what you think he's going to be or where he's drafted. That's part of being an Eagle offensive lineman. You talked last segment with Tommy about we're not realizing, not given enough credence to what this run is that the Eagles are on right now, Coach Sirianni, whatever. Same thing with Stoutland. We could just sit here and give him his props on a daily basis because the Eagles offensive line from the day he showed up has just gotten better. And Sua Opeta is just the latest example of such, that guy who he was dropped to the practice squad last year, was he not, John?
Yes. He was.
How did somebody in the National Football League not take a chance there? There are so many teams whose offensive lines are in disarray.
It's
and you got a guy who's spent quality time at Stoutland University, and the Eagles take a risk and put him out there, and you don't snap him up. Shame on the other teams in the National Football League.
Sua was originally, way back when he first started, he was on the practice squad. Miami tried to sign him off the practice squad, and the Eagles liked him so much that they elevated him to the 53 to keep him. And then, he had some struggles and they ultimately released him again. Yeah, everybody had a shot at him. I often wonder why Jeff Stoutland's assistants don't get offensive line coaching jobs. I don't know, because there's a lot of bad offensive lines out there. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they just don't interview well, because you would think learning from the master would get you a shot somewhere, someplace, and maybe it will happen this off season. All right, I gave you the under/over numbers for Devontae Smith this week, and we both seem to think that the Eagles will do what they need to do to get him more involved, get him more touches, get him more plays. How do you think Jalen's running goes this week? Kind of a surprise last week. Not that he ran, but ran a lot and ran aggressively. My word the week before using his running to describe was tentatively. I would call a couple of the runs this past week against the Rams, aggressive runs, running through tackles, not going down, fighting for extra yards. A little bit of a difference than what we saw the first 4 games. Now that that's on tape, now that it's been discussed, what kind of a running game do you think we get from Jalen Hurts against the Jets?
Well, it's
a better
interesting
defense than the Rams,
because I look at the Jets defense on paper and I go, well, this is the most talented group the Eagles have faced this year on defense by a wide margin, I would say. But it hasn't really shown up when you look at the statistics. So you would know better than I what they're doing. They're 29th in the league in rush defense. I can't explain that. So is the offense having that much of a deterrent on the defense? Because
in a word, yes.
Yeah, when you struggle that much, I know they're 32nd pass offense, so dead last, 32nd in third down offense, so dead last, 31st in red zone offense, so second to last.
Eagles red zone offense looks good this week.
Yeah,
in comparison to the opposition.
Comparison, yeah. So the offense has been so bad, I assume it's wearing on the defense. And that it's still a small sample size when you talk about the number of games. But I look at the individual.
5 starting to grow, John. 3
I mean,
5 will get here a third of the season. After this week, it'll be more than a third of the season.
Well, I look at the individual players on the Jets defense and I say, well, that guy's good. 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 So I can't explain why they're ranked 22nd in the NFL in defense. I think it'll adjust, or maybe I'm overrating the talent.
No,
but they look good on paper.
You answered your own question. The offense is dragging the defense down. They're a talented defense. They got a lot of talented defensive players, but they're just out there so often because the Jets go 1, 2, 3 punt. It's what you give me as a number 22nd. Do I believe the Jets are the 22nd best defense in the National Football League? Not on your life. No shot. I know they're better than that.
So when you talk about the running game, the quarterback running game, I mean, how are they going to play? Are they going to play like New England? I don't know. They have linebackers that could spy. Quincy Williams has been tremendous this year from the film grades from PFF. It's difficult because that offense, and that's why football's the complementary game it is, because that offense is dragging down that defense. So ultimately, I think you might see some inflated statistics in the second half for the Eagles. And I assume that's what happens to the Jets because they're out of the game. Human nature. You start to
that's what happened against the Cowboys. I watched that game.
Yeah.
They completely lost focus because they were behind and they knew they had no chance.
It happens all the time.
And they lost focus.
It happens all the time. And if you're in a game, you're locked in, close. They are human beings, football players. So they have those types of things. So my assumption is the Eagles' numbers are going to be better than people expect because they're going to get some inflated numbers in the second half.
That's what the Eagles need to do, get a lead and just keep extending it. All right, you got McDonald and McMullen. We're going to add another M to the group. That would be our boy, Jeff Mosher from InsideTheBirds.com, both the website and the podcast. A couple of weeks since we had Mosher on. We're punching him up next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Oh, he disappeared on us. I swear he was just sitting there. There he comes. All right. Was that nature calling, or are you getting more coffee?
He's
Which
back.
one, Mosher?
I was actually looking for a Phillies t-shirt. I was going to throw one on to support the team, and
Come
I
on.
think it's dirty.
That's
I wear
Nick
it a lot.
Sirianni's job, Jeff.
Oh, that's a good point.
Chief. Yeah, we don't need that.
And that's a quasi red shirt. We'll accept that as a Philly shirt. You don't have to go full on brand on it. So we'll give you the props for it. All right, Moshe, here's where I want to start with you. I'm going to eliminate the easiest of easy answers, which is if I put players in and I asked you what has been the most impressive aspect of the Philadelphia Eagles, you'd probably go to Jalen Carter. You should, at least, because what he's done is kind of come. We knew he's going to be good. Nobody knew he's going to be this good. So I'm going to take an individual player out of it. So it's just an aspect of the Eagles: offense, defense, coaching, specific area on the field. What to you at 5-0, haven't lost yet, what has been the most impressive aspect of the Philadelphia Eagles through these first 5 games?
So I actually think I wouldn't have answered your question.
You wouldn't have gone Carter.
I would have done what you wanted me to do anyway, which was take a bigger picture look at it, not an individual. I would have told you that the most impressive thing about the Philadelphia Eagles, even more so than last year, is the play that they're getting in the trenches in the offensive and defensive line. The offensive line, I think, has been, I think you would say more so than last year, because they've had 2 new right guards. this year and haven't skipped a beat. And defensive line, it's very hard to lose a player as good as Javon Hargrave and say you're better. And I'm not here to disparage anything Javon Hargrave did.
Having a great year.
But he's doing what he does. He sacks quarterbacks. But the Eagles got tougher and meaner up front when he left, and they put Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis became or is starting to become the Jordan Davis that the Eagles wanted when they drafted him 2 years ago, which he was not last year. That combination right there in the middle of the Eagles defense has made them a bully. And I wouldn't quite call them last year. They were a bully against quarterbacks, but now they're a bully against running backs and quarterbacks.
Yeah. I'm with you. I said the best way I can describe Jalen Carter is the Eagles lost a $21 million defensive tackle on free agency, deservedly so, and they got better. And they got better. They are better.
They are.
Because Jalen Carter's that good of a player. In Los Angeles, Jeff, I was worried at halftime. I was worried. I said, oh, this is going to be a problem because Cooper Kupp was killing this team. I mean, just killing them. And then second half comes around, over. Nothing. 80 yards of offense from the Rams. And I pointed to the one play, the more violent of the two sacks by Jalen Carter. And Matthew Stafford was looking for a flag, didn't get a flag, and he was done. That was it. So you talk about that bully aspect. Yeah. And Bucky Brooks was the guy, give him credit from NFL media, said, and this was in the offseason. Bucky said, this is the best position group in the entire NFL. Any position group from any team, the Eagles defensive fronts, they win games because of their defensive line, their offensive line, and their quarterback. But have you ever seen a run like this?
No. I mean, even in the best days of, the early days of Andy, when they went to 4 NFC championship games in a row and a Super Bowl, I think this team is still a better in the trenches team, to your point, and a deeper overall team in a lot of positions. I think what the Eagles do, John, that I haven't seen them do in a long time is even when they were good, is demoralize opponents. Because if you're on defense against the Eagles, you almost have to force a negative play or a +0 on first down. Because if they get 3 to 4 on first down and it's now 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 7, and all they do is pick up 2 or 3 more, they got 2 more downs. They're coming. This is not 3 downs and punt if you don't get it. They convert 4th down, 4th and short. They convert 3rd and long with their running game as well as anybody. So if you don't get a 3rd down sack, if you don't get a stop on first down, which is hard because the Eagles' offensive line is so good, it's really hard to keep them from moving up and down the field. I really think the game against the Rams was closer in score than in actual identity. The Eagles had 6 or 7 drives of at least 10 plays or at least 60 yards. They were not necessarily stopped very much by the Rams defense. It was a grinded out game, which is what the Eagles have been doing. That's why the score doesn't get very high, because they just work the ball down the field. And on defense, they're demoralizing because they just come at you with that front 4 all the time. And you know what? Stafford probably to this day, I don't know, quarterbacks get over it in 24 hours, right? But if I'm Stafford, on Monday, I'm probably still thinking about how I missed Puka Nacua. Atwell for a touchdown there in, what was it, the third quarter? Is wide. I mean, he had a step.
And he missed a couple times down the field because he was hurried.
And that's what I mean. Yeah. You can miss a couple of throws, and again, it happens all the time. Jalen Hurts will miss 2 or 3 throws, but if you miss 3 throws against the Eagles, forget it. That's where it's demoralizing. You have to play a damn near perfect game against them.
All right, let me flip it over to the other quarterback. That would be the Eagles quarterback, Jalen Hurts. John and I just talked about this before we punch you up. Jalen had his best running game of the year by far on Sunday against the Rams. And for me, he ran with a purpose and he ran with aggressiveness as compared to what I described as tentativeness the first 4 games. And the coach got a little defensive about it after the game. Said, "What y'all say? He can't do it anymore?" No one said that, Coach. We just asked why he wasn't running the same way as he had. But Coach was ready to jump to his defense right away. Good for you, Coach. But now we got another week, and Jalen just kind of, some people speculating he wanted to prove a point and that he was going to show everybody. Yeah, I can do this anytime I want. Stop with the questioning here. Is he a running quarterback again this week? If we considered him a running quarterback last week, was that just to set the record straight, to plant the seed to other teams? Yeah, I can go whenever I need to. I can turn up. I can run to a tackle, get a first down. You don't be cheating on me. What kind of a rushing attack do you expect? What kind of a running contribution do you expect Jalen Hurts to make this week?
So let's go back to the way he ran against the Rams. I do think that while he carried 15 times, and that was a lot. That was twice as many as he's had in any game so far this year. And I definitely believe that from Jalen to the coaches to maybe even the front office, right? I believe there's been a directive to say, let's not take unnecessary hits. You're our big time guy now. You paid a lot of money. You've had injuries in each of the last 2 years. You've progressed as a passer. There's really no need. And honestly, teams are going to account for him in the run game, whether he's running or not. If you go watch what Minnesota did with Spy at times, or Jordan Hicks trying to play the gaps, but also trying to play the outside, and he never ran, but he has to be accounted for. So he doesn't necessarily have to run on the zone reads. And I think against the Rams, a lot of that running yards, a lot were on scrambles because he got out of the pocket and ran. And then a couple of times the Rams played some alignments, right? I mean, there was one alignment where both they came out with 2-3 techniques, which is, you got both defensive tackles over the guard's outside shoulder, and there's a channel a mile wide to run straight through the middle. That's where he just called his own number, ran straight up the middle, and got like 15 yards on it. So I do think some of that was, well, if you're going to give me that, I'm going to take it, right? Because I'm not even going to get hit. So there was some of that. I don't know if he's going to run 15 times against the Jets. The Jets do have a good pass rush, so I imagine he will probably have to make some plays.
They have good linebackers. Don't forget the Rams have the worst linebackers in the history of civilization. Those guys were a bit overmatched. Yeah, the Jets. This is the most talented defense they faced. I think this year from now. Jody and I
were pretty good. I mean, from a talent standpoint, I think.
The Bucks are very good. But the Jets have playmakers at all three levels. It won't be as easy because you can game plan for Aaron Donald. The Eagles did it very well. Slid everything his way. Even you rarely see chips for interior players. You saw chips, for an interior player.
How about Kenny Gainwell putting a double chip on the same play in which he caught the ball and then bowled over some guys for first down? You don't really see that a whole often. That was pretty good.
So they did a nice job game planning. I don't think they can do it this week with the Jets because other people can take advantage of it. But boy, I look at this offensive line, and now Sua. And Jody asked me an interesting question yesterday, and he said, if they played right now, and actually I was on our buddy Paul Domowich's podcast, he asked me the same question, Jody. If the 49ers and the Eagles met today, who would I pick? And both Jody and Damo went with the 49ers. I went with the Eagles because I look at the 49ers. They have the great skill position players. Christian McCaffrey's unbelievable. Kyle Shanahan scheming up. Brock Purdy's playing like an MVP. They got 4 receivers that can gouge you. They have a Hall of Fame left tackle. But the other 4 offensive linemen are the worst players on the 49ers offense. And how are they going to deal with the Eagles defensive front? Vice versa. The Eagles can block anybody.
Well,
Nick Bosa came in here last year. No problem. That might be the best pass rusher in football.
It's a good point,
Wayne
John.
Johnson.
I mean, as great as their offense is and looks and flashy, right? The base of their offense is still run and run action and playing off of that. And if you can't get good runs with McCaffrey or Eli Mitchell, whoever they have, if the Eagles are able to put them in in difficult down and distance scenarios for Brock Purdy and say, make Brock Purdy win the game without that becomes really difficult. So I could see your point there.
Yeah.
However, if anybody is going to be able to take advantage of the issues the Eagles are having with communication on the back end, in the slot, be able to strike in that intermediary area, it would be the 49ers. So I could sort of seeing it being neck and neck a little bit, but I totally understand.
But the larger point, why I brought that up, the offensive line of the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about that on a consistent level. Now you lose Cam Jurgens, Suo-Peta. I was a little bit surprised that there wasn't more of a conversation, because you have Jack Driscoll, who's played right guard in the past. You have Tyler Steen, who the Eagles drafted to be their right guard of the future. And they were like, and you know Nick Sirianni, Jeff, competitive advantage, everything. He doesn't want to admit everything. But with Sua, he said, no, we're going to go with Sua. Has he improved that much?
Well, one thing I was told, John, coming out of camp when we were all trying to figure out our 53s and we're all doing our homework, I was told by a pretty strong source that Suo-Peta was not just one of the most improved linemen in camp, but was one of the most overall improved players in the entire camp, which is hard sometimes to notice because he's always running like second or third team. For example, I was also told Julian Good-Jones was putting on some good tape, the third string center or whatever, but who would know that, right? From practice or tape. Who would have known Tanner McKee? Because those guys never get any reps in practice, and then you go see them in a game. So when I was told that, I was like, that was interesting. And it did make sense because I thought last year he started to turn the corner a little bit because he had to play as a guy who couldn't, when he first started out, remember, he could only play, I think, left guard.
Yeah.
He could not play the right side. And this is just another Stoutland development story of a guy who was looked at as one way, but has now broadened his horizons, has developed, has got himself the one thing about Sua, even when he came to the Eagles raw, was he really had strong hands. They would always say, like the way Jason Peters had really strong clamp hands and violent hands. That was Sua. He always had really strong hands. He struggled with anchor. He struggled with his footwork, but that seems to have come together. And now that he can play both sides, he's increased his value. We might be talking about Suo-Peta as like the same way we did like Nate Herbig or I don't want to say Big V. He's a tackle, but who else? Samalu was a long-time starter. But my point is a backup who gets his chance like Herbig, right? Plays well, and then in 2 years he's signing a contract with another team, which the Eagles will be grateful for because then that helps them in the comp pick game.
Yeah.
Right. And that could very well happen with Opeta. I do want to make one clarification, though. I didn't ask John yesterday if the Eagles and the 49ers played, who would you pick? What I asked John was 5-0, both teams 5-0. If you're power rating the two teams, both at 5-0, because John and I agreed, first things first, got to be record. There's only two undefeated teams, so they got to be 1-2.
Mm-hmm.
How would you rank them 1 and 2? And I said, I would rank the 49ers ahead because I think they played better and been more impressive in their 5 wins. John said he would put the Eagles ahead because he just thinks the Eagles have a better roster, and he would break it down by roster rather than accomplishment.
Yeah, I apologize because when I hear the term power rankings, my head tends to turn off because I don't care about that. So I go to who's the better team. That's kind of what I default to when I ever hear power rankings. I say, well, that to me means who's the better team.
Right.
And I think
it's like, is MVP supposed to go to the best player or the player who is very literally the most valuable player to that player's
Yeah. So it depends
on. We got to get you on the record, Moshe. Give it your power rankings of the NFL. Who's 1, who's 2?
Oh man.
Could be somebody else.
If I had to do a power rankings, I'd probably put the 49ers 1 and the Eagles 2.
Could be who did
a little bit more dominant.
Who did ESPN's football power index had Buffalo?
Oh, the index
lost team.
That's the most ridiculous thing on the planet.
Isn't that the one that has the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl every year?
Okay. They're actually dropped down to number 6, but the Eagles are number 7. Somehow the Eagles are 7. In what world, in any power rating, can a 5-0 team be 7th? Ridiculous.
I don't know. In the same world that I don't know if you guys remember I remember this vividly, even the year 2015. Aaron Rodgers throws like 5 touchdowns in a game And I think it was right after his father passed. I don't know if somebody in his family passed away, something like that. It was an emotional game. He threw 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And PFF gave him
That
a
was Brett
minus
Favre,
grading. Yeah, they gave him a minus grading for the game because he threw too many passes that were like, lucky
Touchdown,
to be,
turnover worthy.
Yeah, they could have been intercepted.
Yeah, turnover
This is the
worthy
world we're
plays.
living in.
Well, remember when Denver came in here and was blown out by the Eagles, the Von Miller Broncos? Might have been the Super Bowl season. I think it was the Super Bowl
year.
season.
Yeah.
And Von Miller got a tremendous grade by Pro Football Focus. Eagles fan, I've never seen Eagles fans so fired up because they're like, you see the clips of Lane dominating him.
Right.
But he did have a good game. If you just break it down to everybody else had a bad game, but Von Miller was Von Miller. Yeah. And that's like a lot of people said this week, Jeff, that Sua held up against Aaron Donald. Well, he got a lot of help. A lot of help.
Yeah. It's no knock on Sua.
No, I said that
every
before
team
you came on.
Yeah.
That's just smart coaching.
Yeah, that was a full court press.
Yes.
I mean, there were snaps, you saw it, John, where you could count maybe 3 or 4 bodies.
It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
It really was.
Nick let us in on that during the week. He said 99, 99, 90. Everything's about 99. And they did it. And they could afford to do it because the Rams, don't have a ton of talent on defense right now. But
but you do have to sort of say, hey, good job though to guys like Stoll and Gainwell and other guys. Because when you do that, when you play that strategy, you need to single block other guys with guys who may not be linemen, right? So I thought they did a good job on the other guys, even if they're not Hall of Famers. You're still asking running backs and backup tight ends to make blocks. So that was good.
No question about it.
All right. I'm going to be the same jerk to you that I was to Tommy Lawler earlier. And
can't you just be nice to me once?
No. That would ruin my reputation of being a dick. So I'm going to do this again with you. Nick Sirianni with the win this past week went to 28-11 for his NFL coaching record. That's a 717 winning percentage, which puts him 4th all-time coaches who have coached at least 2 years in the history of the National Football League. Not in the past 2 years, not in the past, the history of the National Football League. He's number 4.
Wow.
With the 3 coaches ahead of him.
All right, what the stat again is what? Road record?
718 winning percentage as a head coach.
Oh.
There are only 3 coaches in the history of the National Football League who have a better record having coached a minimum of 2 years. You got to coach at least 2 years, and Serrianni's now 2 years and 5 games. His winning percentage is 4th all time in the history of the NFL. Who are the 3 guys ahead of him?
You're not going to get one.
Wow, this is tough because it's got to be above 700, and all the great coaches have been like Reed and Shula and Belichick. They've coached so long that there's no way they're above 700. So it's got to be someone who had a very short.
Hey, you're on the right track.
One, I'm being unfair. One does actually go above and beyond.
One's really obvious. No, but you're on the right track. Just older. Think 70s.
Oh man, I'm not good with. I was born in '76, so
if Belichick isn't the greatest coach of all time, who is?
Shula.
Think
Before
about
Shula.
A trophy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I missed. I sort of missed the layup here on Vince
Yeah.
Lombardi.
And then I would say video game.
Madden. Lombardi and Madden. Wow.
Lombardi and Madden, and the other one is Guy Chamberlain.
Of course.
The great Guy Chamberlain. But here's what I said when Jody told me this. Here's my stat. What is the number one? Give me the number one again, Jody. The winning percentage.
Number one is Guy Chamberlain at 750. Excuse me. Yeah, 759.
759, Jeff. Nick Sirianni, since that 2-5 start, is 26-6, 813 winning percentage. 813. winning percentage.
Wow. He bought a lot of currency for the second half of this year's schedule. He can lose a few and still be really good.
Yeah.
He's gonna have to.
And that's why.
San Francisco and
That's
Buffalo
why.
and
Now, I
Kansas
don't know. InsideTheBirds.com, Jeff, obviously the great podcast with Adam Kaplan. Our buddy Andrew DeCecco does a great job. Had a lot of fun with him in LA, by the way, Jeff.
Nice.
I don't know if you guys get it, but I get it. A lot of Eagles fans, not all Eagles fans, but a lot of Eagles fans, I don't think they understand what this run is. This stuff doesn't happen in the NFL. It's a league built on parity. Everybody has bad weeks, and the Eagles have bad weeks, but they win games.
Yeah. You know, I was watching, I'm late to every like series and show. Like I still haven't even made it to 2 episodes of Quarterback yet on Netflix, but I watched the whole Tom Brady Man in the Arena thing earlier this year, or maybe like 4 months ago, which I didn't really enjoy, by the way. I thought it kind of got stale after the first 2 or 3 episodes, but the point was, you know, you can tell like every time they won the Super Bowl or went to a Super Bowl the next year, they lost so many they would always get off to like slower starts and then pick up middle of the year and then hit their stride in late October, November. For the Eagles to just sort of you know, they did not have the Super Bowl hangover. Look at the Bengals. Last year they were a 5-6 team.
Yeah, I picked the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl. I mushed
the only
them.
one.
I mushed them, Jeff.
You are not the only one.
So then again, there are some of us that pick the Jets. At least I got an explanation. I got it out. I got Aaron Rodgers to blame for it.
Yeah, but you know what, Cody? You should have known better. Being your roots, you should have known a whole lot better than that.
Yeah. It's been 50 friggin' years, and I'm waiting for a return to the Super Bowl, and it's the first time ever, Jeff. I've been doing either this stuff or radio for sneaking up on 40 years. I've never picked the Jets once to go to the Super Bowl. This was the first time in 37 years of doing radio that I ever picked the Jets. And I was wrong after 4 fucking snaps.
You should have known. You should have. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on
me.
you.
Killing me.
All right. At Jeff P. Mosher, make sure you follow Jeff on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. All right, we'll talk about Jalen Hurts. So Jalen is now 22-1 in his last 23 regular season starts, dating back to week 15 of 2021. That winning percentage, by the way, is .957 for those who care. He is the 5th NFL quarterback to win 22 out of 23 in that kind of stretch. The other 4 are Brady, Manning, Montana, and Jim McMahon, that great Bears run, that great Bears team, best team still to this day I've ever seen. 85 Bears. This week, if he wins, and let's be honest, it's Jody's Jets, so he's going to win the game. It's Brady. Montana drops off, so it's just Brady, Manning, McMahon. I can't say enough about this run, Jeff. It is unbelievable.
Has anybody done the collective Jalen Hurts winning percentage going back to high school? I mean, it's got to be.
Wow. It's outrageous,
ridiculous, right? I mean,
so my question though is, where does it end? They're not going 17-0. Where does it end?
They're not right. Yeah, obviously the second half of the year, there's going to be a loss or 2 in there. They're still going to finish really high. I didn't think they were going to start 5-0 or 6-0.
Either did I.
I'm already giving them a Jets win. I shouldn't do that, but I didn't think that they would start off that good. I thought they'd be good, but not that good. They bought themselves a lot of room for error in that second half of the schedule, especially with the Cowboys already losing 2 games. And, you know, eventually, John, like, you know, this, like the cream will, it'll settle. Like they're not going to be a 14-win team for the next 7 straight years.
No.
But the way they're able to, if they keep focusing on the line the way they do, and the rest of the league keeps ignoring it the way it does.
That's maybe they
will.
the fact that this league gave this roster Jalen Carter, I say it all the time on this show, that is dereliction of duty from every NFL organization. Now, obviously, they all didn't have a chance at Jalen Carter. I pick on the poor Bears because they could have got him twice. It's understandable they didn't want to take him at number 1 overall because of the issues. Then they could have taken him again at number 9. They said, nope, we don't need him. We have the worst defensive front in the football. Why would we need him?
Why would we want that? Yeah.
It's amazing to me.
Well, we just poured $35 million into linebackers, off-ball linebackers. Why would we actually want to give ourselves a defensive tackle who could keep those guys clean? I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be quite it. All right, couple things before we let you run, Mosher. Number one, the Jalen Hurts numbers you got just about pretty damn impressive and keeping very good company, and one could come off the list. I understand looking forward. Don't forget to look behind, because that Purdy guy is never lost a game as a starter, as a regular season guy in it. So he could be had someone coming up behind him while he's looking ahead to some of these all-time greats that he's putting up numbers with. Just thought I'd mention that. And number two, go ahead and give him a win against the Jets. He told me I shouldn't have. Then I'm going to say, yeah, okay, if I got to acknowledge the fact that the Jets are now a compromised team because Aaron Rodgers is sitting up there playing with his beard in the press box rather than on the field throwing passes. Yeah, I have permission. I'm going to go ahead and give the Eagles a win against the Jets this week. Now, the next week against Miami, that could be another story.
That's what I like to say. That's when the fun begins, when you look at the schedule. That is when the fun begins.
Two phrases most used today that I will steal. That's when the fun begins, and the Eagles are bullies up front. Like them both, Mosher. Thank you much for jumping in, buddy. We'll get you up again soon.
All right, guys. Have fun. It was always good.
Check his website, InsideTheBirds.com, and the podcast he does with Adam Catlin, InsideTheBirds.com. All right, McMullen and McDonald, we got to come back, put a bow on this show. Stick around. Final thoughts on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Johnny Mac, last couple minutes here on Birds 365. All right, so we did not know what time the Phillies were going to be playing last night when the game ended. Had to wait to see what happened between the D-backs and the Dodgers. And sure enough, Arizona going to the NLCS. Will the Phillies be following by taking out the Braves tonight? We'll see. But it did affect the time of tonight's game. It was supposed to be 6 o'clock if the Dodgers had won. Now it's pushed back to 8 prime time. Again, TV dictating everything in the world of sports. NFL, MLB, NBA, you name it. TV dictates the time. Convenience of the fans, convenience of people, convenience of the teams. You're Bryce Harper. You have this unbelievable game last night. You once again show you're one of the most clutch players in the history of not only the Phillies organization, I'd say the entire sports town of Philadelphia. And you don't know what time you have to report back to work the next day?
Yeah.
Freaking idiotic. But we digress on that. But you now know, John, that the crowd isn't going to filter into the bank until later, 8 o'clock first pitch.
That's a big break. That's a rare break for me.
In and out for you today. What do you got going in South Philly?
Practice is at 1:30-ish. Then open locker room, get to talk to the players.
Full-blown practice? Have they designated that, or could it be a walk?
Yeah, no, it's a full-blown practice. Okay. Typical week, Sunday week. So still early enough in the season that everything is as planned. Will be interesting to see. Justin Evans is back. Slay's going to play. I mean, he's been on social media and joking around with players, and I think he's going to be fine. But Evans, not so sure about. So might be an opportunity, as I mentioned, to get Sidney Brown on the field. They could go back to Terrell Edmonds. Tommy Lawler would not like that. Might be a good opportunity, as I said. The Jets don't throw the football that well. So I'd like to get Nakobe for that reason. Eagles would never admit this, but I can admit it. I think it's a good opportunity to get Nakobe back in the mix and get Sidney Brown's toes wet, so to speak. Perfect opportunity.
Right. And it pains me to say it, but the Jet offense is what it is. You got a couple of those numbers yesterday. 30-second passing, 30-second in the red zone. Again, let me remind everyone, 32 teams in the National Football League.
Yeah.
So if you're 32nd, that's not
good. That's not good.
No. So this is a good week for the Eagle defense to maybe take some advantages. All right, J-Mac, safe in and out of South Philly today. Glad you won't have to face traffic and you won't be calling me if you break down on the Walt Whitman Bridge. Make it home safe and sound. Will you make it back here with me in the morning?
Yeah, first hour, and then second hour. Hopefully, I believe it's going to be Mark Barzetta,
because he's got Eagles head coach.
Yes, Mark Barzetta. It's official.
Farzi's in. Cool. All right, so I'll talk to you tomorrow at 8 o'clock. That means Mac and Mac on Birds 365 and 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.